will revisit a few items from last week, including clarifying questions on a public works truck, AED devices and training, tree trimming revised budget numbers, and the 67th and Clarendon Hills Road traffic light. But first, we will start with the review of the police department budget with Chief Thomas. The final budgets remaining for review after that are the water funds, motor fuel tax, MFT, and special service areas, SSA budgets. Additional information was provided to the City Council on all these matters listed by Brian Vanna and Dan Gombeck since our last meeting and have been posted on the City of Darien website. All City Council members received copies of the fiscal year 2023 budget along with summary pages and supporting documents. All of this information has been published on the City of Darien website. These meetings are being broadcast on Darien Cable Channel TV number 6 and will be available for viewing on the City of Darien website and the YouTube channel. So before we get started, do you have anything to add, Mayor Marquez? Administrator Vanna?
Nothing to add.
Treasurer Corn?
Soon enough.
Okay, so tonight we will then begin with the budget
and that one for sure will not get before the end of April.
So I could make those changes, but we're really, it's still not sure, no matter what, the groups are saying. So if we end up not buying it this year, that will just be more in the fund balance at the end of this year and would carry over to the purchases into next year.
But the trucks are ordered, so
Yes.
when they get them, we'll have the money to pay for them.
Yes.
Okay. Whether it comes out of 22 or 23.
Unfortunately, we can't get a good answer no matter who we talk to. It seems to change every 2 weeks.
Which brings us back to the topic we had last week. We have two trucks on here for 24, a trailer and a truck. Is that something we need to look at in getting the ball rolling on those?
The one
We have the
ve-
pickup truck, a truck number 500, and then a trailer number 411. And I don't know if trailers are backed up too.
I mean, what we looked at, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, the one vehicle that was earmarked, that's Alderman Shower had recommended, we looked at that, and based on the timing.
These are different.
Yeah, I know, but just based on that timing for that truck, it makes sense.
But that's a municipal services.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So I don't want to be.
Okay.
No, I understand.
that's
I'm
that
just saying
portion.
that we have the same type of issue
Right.
here. And is that something that we need to look at getting the truck number 500 on
Right.
order now? And we probably won't get it till 24.
Chris, I'll let you,
Yeah.
why don't you chime in on that, the reliability. of
Yeah,
it.
so I mean, realistically, we would have to look at what, if there's even an open contract right now, but I mean, we saw last year, and I think probably this year, or this coming up year, I'm not sure, but I would probably anticipate replacing that truck with somewhere in an F-250, F-350 range. It's currently a Ford Ranger, and it's not really useful for the rest of the fleet for getting other work done, so it would be a little bit of an upsize, but this year there was a short window of about a month and a half to 2 months where we were able to order an F-350, and again, at that point, there was about, their best estimate was 8 months, probably for delivery, and again, so the truck is starting to have some issues. Again, we can definitely look at it if the money's there. That would be a council decision. At the direction, we could see when there is an opportunity to purchase it, based on open contracts. But I don't even know when they have them open right now.
And that's part of the problem with the open contracts is typically they run for about 6 to 9 months. Recently, they basically Ford in this case, they closed the contract with no advertisement or no notice. All of a sudden, the contract came back, and if you recall, that's one of them. Well, as soon as we identified that, we came back to the city council and ordered that truck because the window again was shortened. So, to your point, while we don't want to keep ordering trucks for no reason, but I think we can take a look at it to make sure we're making the best decision on our ends with reliability on the rating scale, basically. So we'll look at the trailer again, and we'll look at the Ford, the replacement for the smaller truck for the F-250, and we'll see what the state has at the same time. But we haven't seen any contracts that have been coming out lately. So if we can get back,
So truck 500 specifically, you're saying what?
we're going to take a look at it, and
Yeah,
we'll
just
come back.
considering this is the, really the last budget meeting.
Right. If we can consider it, if we could put it in there, we would love to take the opportunity to at least earmark it. If there is something different, staff will recommend to remove it in hold. So if that is acceptable to the council.
I mean, all we're doing is moving something that's going to be in our 24 budget into our 23 budget,
Right.
correct? I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to try to get it as early as possible.
And to piggyback off that, and, we talked about it last week, and Tom's right. I mean, I brought it up with the chief, and, yeah, we hope that we are even gonna get police cars. I'm not saying we should go out and buy a whole fleet, that's not the case. But I'm saying, as a city, we should look at every vehicle that's in the city, and if it's close to being borderline or within a year or 2 years from being ordered, we should look at it and see, maybe we should think about ordering it now, so we have it, because we don't know what we're gonna get. And that's my concern that's going on with it, because, like I said, with, dump trucks, all of a sudden, you run out of a snowplow, people are gonna start yelling and screaming. We don't have enough police cars, people are gonna have issues with it. That's my main concern, because we can't guarantee we're gonna get, these cars on time.
And to your point with the larger trucks, we just recently found out that the chips for the larger trucks are made in Ukraine.
Terrific.
Yeah, it's a little bit of
Oh my goodness.
irony, if you want to say. But nonetheless, we'll, if we could earmark both of those items in there for budget inclusion, we will get back within the next couple days on the rating and let Brian know. And we can,
So you're talking about, so under
Truck.
capital purchases, equipment, 50-4815, you want to earmark the pickup truck and the, you said the trailer?
trailer, correct?
Okay, so for truck number 500,
Right.
and to see if that's something we can put in the 23 budget.
Yes.
And do I have a consensus, council members, to do that?
Well, you already had them scheduled for 24, correct, Dan? So it's just
Correct.
a matter of moving it from one year to the other. right?
Eric, are you,
We just need to
Okay.
check the 24 price.
I saw you shake
It
your
could
head,
have been
so.
higher or lower, but
Okay,
moving it
so
up.
you've got everyone agreeing here on the, you know, that you should go ahead and plan for that.
Okay, but the trailer, it's a little more simpler because we have a good source locally that we can tap into. So, you know, we will research that immediately.
And I would say, I just pulled up the 3-year vehicle projection. Truck 500 currently has a 73.94 rating, so we're on the verge. It needs a 75 to be replaced. You're just shy of a little bit more than a point over. It needs to go. So I would definitely say that number, you know, and we might need to, again, I'm taking a best estimate at that price. I'm hoping that price is still a valid price, and I don't even know if I could get anybody to give me an estimate because I don't know if they know. So that would be the only thing that I'm a little concerned about because.
But we'll work a conservative number
Yeah.
in to make sure we have enough.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
And Dan, the trailer, you said we can get that local, so that you don't have. to-
Potentially local, depending on the type, the style, the weight rating.
It's
So,
a trailer attached to the truck? It's,
It's separate. The trailer is a separate,
It's a
I'll call it
tow
separate
behind
vehicle.
trailer, yeah.
but you wouldn't get the trailer until you know what truck you're getting.
No,
Okay,
well, typically we know what type of trailer we need.
Yeah.
That trailer will be adaptable to the
Multiple
trucks. Yeah, the
okay. Any other questions on the truck, 500? Any other questions on this budget, the water fund budget?
Just real quick, there's truck number 500 shows up twice. One is a 3/4 ton and one is a 1 ton. Is that, unless I'm reading, oh, that's 500 twice. One of them for 25, one for 24.
Sorry, Tom, what page I just,
I'm on page 101.
Isn't one the
Third
trailer?
from the top.
Oh, no, the trailer's
Farther down.
411.
yeah, we'll check the numbers. It shows it shows truck 500, 1 ton.
And then again is a 3/4 ton a little farther
Yes.
down.
We were gonna, I think last year I had it earmarked possibly for a 3/4 ton, and I think this year I moved it up a class to help us, when we looked at a couple of replacements.
So we're just talking about one truck, but we don't know whether it's 3/4 or 1 ton.
We would go with a 1 ton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll
Pick up
just
on that.
remove the 3/4, reference to the 3/4 ton?
Yep.
Okay. And then trailer number 411 connects to truck number 500. Yeah,
and various other vehicles.
and various. Okay, got it. You good with that, Tom Belzak? Okay. Any other questions on the water fund budget? Okay, then we will move on to water depreciation. Page 127. Any questions on the summary page? Okay, if not, we'll move, which is page 127, we'll move into the budget details, page 128. We have account 12-51-4815, equipment, 262,000 for discretionary, which is truck 403 and truck 408. Chris?
Those are the 2 trucks that are on order currently that we don't know when we're gonna get.
So we forwarded them for May 1st, so the balance is just being carried over.
Right, because those were intended for fiscal year '22, correct?
Chris, didn't you say one of them we might get by the end of May?
Yeah, I was told that the larger dump truck was supposed to be built by Peterbilt in Q1 of this year. It then still has to go to Monroe for the and they can't tell me any time frame, and I haven't heard an update as to if it will actually be done from Peterbilt in Q1. As we're getting close to the, we've got a month here basically. Not hearing any update is not really encouraging to me, to be honest.
Yes,
Mary, I'm sorry, if I could go back to page 127, I was just having trouble reading my own writing, so I couldn't get the question out fast enough. Fiscal year '22 estimated actual, about 5 or 6 lines up from the bottom. Capital outlay, budget $3,195,000, estimated actual $83,300. At the end of January, Brian, we're already at $120,000 roughly in that account.
Okay, I might have increased that since, let me double check, Mike. It'll take me a second to pull
Sure.
up. What are we to date, Mike?
Just under 120,000.
Then I will increase it to that number and review it.
so can you recap what you're changing?
He's going to change that from the 83,300 to, I don't know if you're gonna add any to the 120. I don't know if there's anything more between now and the end of the year. It's account 4390.
Yeah, I'll increase that to the year-to-date and check.
Okay. Any questions on that? Further questions? Any more questions on the trucks that we're waiting on? And any of the details on page 128?
I don't know if Dan could just review that 2,950,000.
The water meter change out, Dan?
Yes, this is, again, this is a program that I know we just recently brought to city council, and finally it's coming to fruition. So after a number of years, we co-opt with other municipalities. Bottom line is that DuPage County and the city of Darien are moving forward with the program. There's some other side businesses that are going with, not side businesses, side deals, if you want to say, with other municipalities that aren't basically as ours. DuPage County will be installing the infrastructure, what's referred to as a smart system or automated meter reading system. So DuPage County, under the agreements, will be providing and installing and maintaining infrastructure as it relates to the automated meter reading. In conjunction with that, those items or antennas are going to be placed onto water towers and or strategic locations to be able to read the water meters. So that's the first part of it. The second part of this is the meter program itself. The meter program, which is part of this figure, includes removing and replacing all the residential meters with some limited commercial. When I say limited commercial, the staff has been, over the last couple of years, minus COVID, replacing water meters that are ready to be adapted to the automated meter reading system by putting in another piece of equipment onto it. So the process is en route. Our real goal is to start rolling out the program. I just received the tentative schedule today. We just had a great meeting a couple of weeks ago, kickoff meeting. We're going to start promoting it. When I say promoting it, there'll be a little video that will basically say what we're doing, how we're doing it, and besides why we're doing it. And then there'll be follow-ups with a company that has been vetted it's a plumbing company, and they will be the ones that will be making the telephone calls, reaching out to residents, sending out postcards, scheduling the appointments. The appointments will be basically 6 days a week, okay? So it's really going to be a massive operation. When we target a subdivision, it'll be 30-day increments. We plan on getting everything done within a year. Approximately, it's 10,000 meters, I'll refer to it.
Is there any cost to the residents?
No, there is absolutely zero cost. The only cost that they may have, in the contract, we put I'll call it a parts list together. In some cases, a ground strap, for example. A ground strap, for those of you that don't know, when you disconnect the water meter, let me back up. The copper within the house, within the homes of Darien, typically have what's referred to a ground. That ground is from the electric panel, which is grounded to the water service. That water service grounds all the way back out to the water main, which is the actual ground. When you disconnect the water service, the water meter, and there is no strap or a picture of set of jumper cables from one side to the other, when you remove that meter and there's no wire in between there, you have the potential to have some shorts within the house and or potentially a fire. So we, the city, when the plumbers go in there, they will have these ground straps with them. Whatever home does not have a ground strap, the plumbers will install, the city will pick up that cost. It's very minimal in the grand scheme of things. At the same time, there's valves. There's a valve when the water served prior to the meter and after the meter. We have spoken to the plumbers that we, the city, are going to take responsibility if our plumbers break the valve. So in many cases, residents don't take the opportunity to exercise their valves. And usually what happens is when they need to shut off the water because they have a leak, the gate valve specifically, the gate valve is basically a round handle, and you turn it. Well, those, if they don't get exercised, and over the years, they're probably 25, 30 years old, the gate valve breaks in place. So in that case, the water buffalo box has to get shut off, that part has to get cut out and put in. So we have told the plumbers that if and when the valve breaks by our fault, that we will replace it. And we have some costs if the residents want to replace their valves after the meter, as well as before the meter, especially if it still works, with a newer style valve that's referred to as a ball valve. But that whole program will be obviously put out to residents along with the costs, and the costs are very good costs.
And this is something everyone needs to participate in.
Yes, yes.
Yes, Brian?
Dan, maybe you could just comment though quickly, while it's not a new expense, slower meters start running accurate, that will result. Why don't you just
Correct.
hit
And
on
one
that?
of the most important reasons that we're doing this, majority of our meters are running anywhere from almost 5% up to 8.5% slow. And where the water is not being picked up, especially with all the water saving devices that are out there, what's referred to as the low flow, or a quarter gallon per minute. If you recall, we've done sampling over the years, probably close to 150, 250.
About 500.
500, was it 500? And we basically put reports together, and it showed and they were random reports to random meters throughout town. So we assembled all that and said, yes, we need to be proactive. The average life of a meter is approximately 15 years. We've stretched it to beyond that, where it needs to be removed and replaced to capture some of the revenue or the water costs that we've been losing. And this is also a proactive program that Chris has to report back to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources what we're doing to conserve additional water. And this is one of the measures that many municipalities are taking.
And Dan, I'm sorry, in addition to that though, I meant if a resident has a meter now and they're paying based on a slow meter, when an accurate meter comes in, they'll pay more because you're actually reading the real gallons that went through, whereas prior to the meter change, you're running slow. Now, that will have an impact on residents, maybe minor, some, maybe not, depends on how slow the meter
Right.
is. But what it will help the system in future years, if that increases the revenue, that also might postpone any rate increases that might have to come down the road. So it's just initially, when we have the current rate and somebody gets a new meter in.
But
to
doesn't it
replace.
eventually catch up with the resident? Because, that they will eventually have an actual read done and it'll go backwards? No?
No, once the meter records what's gone through the meter, that's it. So what meters don't, I want to make sure people understand, meters don't move by themselves. Water has to flow through them in order to activate them. And in many cases, a humidifier, for example, which is a very low type of flow, many of those meters aren't picking up that flow. Well, during the winter, a lot of residents do have humidifiers. How much is that? Maybe another 2,000 gallons at the end of the day. But that 2,000 gallons times, and again, let's say 5,000, do the multiplication, and so on and so forth, gets to be a pretty good number.
Well, we always talked about in the city that we think we lose about 5%. Is it 5%?
We're more than that. I think this year we're 12, was it?
No, this year we were just a little bit over 7.
Okay.
Okay, so
Last year we were like 14, but we had a large main break on South Frontage Road that that took some time to actually be found. So, we run in between these ranges.
But that includes the water main breaks you just mentioned.
Yep.
What do you think that we lose off of the houses, just out of curiosity? 5% maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty fair.
So if you think about it, if you got $4.8 million, 10% of that is 480,000, 5% is 240, you take it over 10 years, that's 2.4 million. Brian's right, yes, you might pay a little bit more for it, but it's also a situation where we're not gonna have to raise the rates going down or as fast as we have been. Because in the last, 12 years, I can't remember what it was when I first moved in the city of Darien, but I think it was less than $2 per, thousand. I can't even remember 20 years ago, but.
That was well watered too, right?
Yeah, that was prior, yeah, that's right.
But the point is that the cost of water just continue to go up, and the city of Chicago is gonna pass it on to DePage, is gonna pass it on to us, and so that's where we're at on it. I mean, it's anything that we can do to get our water numbers accurate and in the long term, keep it down, that's gonna be the most important thing.
I mean, couldn't
just
you
want-
also have meters that run fast?
No,
Why?
haven't seen it yet. And there hasn't been a meter that has gone past 101.5%, which is the American Water Works Association standard for a meter. So
Right.
that's, and again, I don't think we've even seen 101.5.
Okay.
What I do want to make clear is, while it's referred to as an LMO report, which is basically the water accountability that Chris has to complete every year. IDNR has not been consistent with the templating and the formulas, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're starting to standardize it a little more.
Yeah,
Speak into it.
over the past few years, they've gotten a lot more stringent on the reporting. They've definitely standardized it more. We now have to submit 2 forms to them. One is an actual audit, and that it basically runs down a bunch of information that we have to gather, a lot of it from DuPage County as far as how things are billed and the amount of revenue, or really comes down to the gallons that we sell to different types of residents. And then it gets imported into this LMO2 report, as Dan calls it, and that's what they call it too. But basically, so they are getting more stringent, and the gentleman that I deal with typically on an annual basis this year has indicated to me that they are actually even talking about, in maybe the not too distant future, about bringing in people to verify the validity of the information that you're giving. So right now, they're basically just taking my word that I'm giving them the most accurate information that I have. They're talking about actually potentially bringing auditors in, similar like they do for the rest of the city information, and actually verifying that information is accurate. So they're talking about trying to get really accurate on these reports, and just so everybody understands, the reason that they're so adamant about these reports and being under these percentages and being within your allocations is because as we pull from the Lake Michigan through the City of Chicago and DuPage Water Commission, nobody in this area puts their water back into the Lake Michigan. So our water is treated and put into the rivers that flow downstream, and they don't go back into the lakes. And whereas every other basically area, on the other Great Lakes that pulls from the lakes, they're putting their water back into it. So if we exceed the allocation that's given down from Congress, basically they have the right to they have the right to pull the allocation or force us to put the water back into the lake, and that's going to be a substantial cost to it.
Substantial penalty
Yeah.
is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of science, and I know we digressed here, but there's a lot of science to how, why, what, and how things are run. And the allocation, recently the allocations, Brian, I'm sorry, do you recall if the allocations were held up, or did they enact
mean new
them?
allocations?
Yeah, the new allocations, because ours was reduced.
For the existing
Yeah,
customers.
and I didn't follow up on.
It was de minimis, I think, right? If it was.
For us it was de minimis,
Yeah.
but again, there was other municipalities that were trying to counter it by either increasing or holding what their current allocation is. So it's really, to counting how many gallons are being utilized and where they're going.
So it gives more accurate data. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So it provides data integrity in a sense. Yeah.
It is at best, and unfortunately, I don't believe that the last 4 years are really, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, while we feel the numbers are correct, there's no pattern, just for the simple reason that the templates have changed and some of the procedures have changed, whereas if we were to go back 7 years, it probably would be more consistent, because the template was in place. You do this, you do this, you do this, and it was consistent for all those years. And now they've been tinkering with it, and I'm sure it's for the better. It's more stringent, if anything else.
It's definitely more stringent. Yeah, but I think it has gotten more consistent. It's just getting used to the information that they're asking since it's new. And then every year they're trying to fine tune a certain portion of the report. So, 1 year he covers a certain area, wants you to make sure you're really good in that area, and then the next year it's focusing on something else. And and I think as Brian had kind of alluded to, people might see a higher water bill. I think really the thing to just make sure everybody understands is it's going to be an accurate water bill. And just like when you go to the gas station, you're getting charged accurately what's going into your gas pump. That gas station wants to make sure they got their money's worth, and we need to make sure that's our recorder, that's our register, to make sure we get paid for what we pumped into your house. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that making sure we allocate, get that money back is right.
And just one more.
I'm sorry, but that is one area too people could still conserve. I've talked to people in the past, maybe they weren't happy with their water bill, but they watered their lawn all summer. So there are ways residents could have an impact to reduce that
for sure.
too.
We've seen just our water pumpage go down. So back when I started doing the report, when I took over the water foreman position back in 2009, we were pumping well over 1 billion gallons a year, and we're down to a little over 900 million. That's a pretty substantial amount of water that we've decreased. And literally, it basically boils down to you're seeing more people as water rates have increased during that time, while not substantially necessarily from us, but they have gone up, in the course of a decade, a little bit more. And people start to conserve because they're finding it's not important to, have green grass, all summer long and sprinkle every day, So we've gotten through our backflow program, We've gotten contacted numerous times for people capping and removing their, sprinkler meters and their sprinkler, disconnecting the sprinkler system from their water system. So, that's where you see a lot of it. And then you find, the little leaks that start to add up as you put in a more accurate meter, people's toilets. That probably 95% of the leaks that we go to or high bill calls that we go to, it's in toilets and it adds up quick.
And one of the beauties of the new program is, and we haven't activated this portal, nor have we approved it. If residents want to be able to go on the portal and set alarms, those alarms could be set for their telephone, whatever the case is. Okay, if I use more than what did you set the number? The resident sets the number, whether it's 5% my daily usage or it's on a monthly 10%, whatever the case is. Residents will have that portal if they want. We just have not enacted it. There's a cost to that, and it's for the resident portal.
Yeah, but that I think would be extremely beneficial to residents. For example, I had a neighbor of mine who went out of town for 2 weeks, had the water line to the refrigerator bursted, and virtually flooded a good portion of the whole downstairs.
Right.
So if they could put an alert like on their phone, they would all of a sudden notice that right away that they've got excess usage. They're out of town. They shouldn't have any. They could set it down to virtually nothing, and they could have easily have found that issue. So I think when we sell the program, I think if we had that type of app out there, it would really show people, how it could benefit them by having this new meters.
Well, that's true, and again, the flavor from the representatives that we met with said it all sounds great, but at the end of the day, it's been less than 5%, 1%, 1% was 1%, 1% have really gone into it. So again, the jury is out on it, but at the same time, the city and DuPage County will be setting up parameters for alarms. Those alarms will be, we're going to set them. And again, basically, what I just rehearsed, 5% over their normal usage, and we'll have all updated contact information. Obviously, if they're out of town, we can go over there still and shut the water off, but we'll be notified, especially when, some residents leave town and we have a polar vortex, and next thing you know is the water's leaking and it's just damaged the entire house.
Yeah.
So we will have that option at no additional cost to us. It's just the portal for residents to get in there.
And what about people who have like a deduct meter for their sprinkler system or any other items? Does this impact that whatsoever?
No, we are not. We are not touching those. Those are basically read once a year. If the county wants to activate those through the AMR, that's entirely up to them. We do not, take any credit for it. We do not install them or remove them. So it's entirely a county/resident issue.
Yes, Mike.
I think I know the answer to this, or I'm assuming the answer to this. I'm assuming we're going to replace the meters in the non-residents as well as the residents. So it'll be everyone covered by our system, because I know the non-residents pay a different rate than we do. So it will capture all of the non-residents as well.
Correct. Yeah, we have various locations that's referred throughout town that are referred to, and they're all incorporated. Serve, Lake in the Woods, for example, and there might be a couple other subdivisions that are unincorporated, but we service them through IGAs that have been put in place for 20 years or so.
So like Hinswood would be another area.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We don't serve Hinswood.
They pay,
Yeah,
DuPage County
They
does.
pay for Darien water.
There's part of it, I think there's a couple addresses. The addresses are, unless you know where the water is at. If they're yellow, if they're red hydrants, they're ours. If they're yellow,
I've got resident friends in Hinswood who tell me they pay Darien water.
But everyone on our system will be getting a new meter.
correct.
Dan, a few years ago, we put smart meters into about 200, 300 homes. Will we go into those homes and do anything to those homes?
The only smart meters that really we put in, and this is the meter we're using, is referred to as the iPearl, which is the smart meter. And in those particular cases where those meters have been replaced, this is where it's going to be an additional cost savings realized. A remote called, what's the remote? MXU. The MXU is basically slapped over the existing remote. So that's the beauty of the program. We want to make sure that when we started replacing meters, that we were sticking with a standard, that we wouldn't have to go into maybe 500 homes, 700 homes,
I don't
whatever
know how
the
many
case is.
we did. I know I have one of them in my house, because mine was one of the test ones. They came in and they replaced it with the smart meter. So you're saying they won't come in my house to do something outside?
That's correct.
And we probably did about 500 homes.
Oh, at least, yeah. Plus, every time we replace a meter, and I couldn't tell you how many are out there or not out there,
Probably about
1,000.
You guys have a record of the houses that got them.
Yes.
Any more questions on the water meter replacement plan? Thank you, Dan and Chris. Any more questions on the water depreciation fund? Okay. Then we will move on to motor fuel tax budget. This was the email you received, and it was also on the website. Page 4 is the number. I'm looking at it electronically. Any questions on page 4 for MFT? Yes, Tom?
What is Rebuild Illinois miscellaneous income?
We receive revenue from the state. One is a regular MFT they normally collected, and then they have a second one. Let me just look that, because we've had a couple different. Oh, I'm sorry, that's that's a special amount they've collected, and they're passing on, I believe, 6 payments to the municipalities, again, based on population. I don't recall how the state created that revenue, but that's an additional, that's coming to the municipalities.
And it
again,
ends in 24? Because there is nothing in there
Correct.
for 25. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on page 4, the summary of expenses and revenue? Okay, and we'll pop down to page 5.
Just one comment.
Yes.
We mentioned it last week in the capital projects. We'll be moving the crack seal program into MFT, and it's just not reflected yet.
Okay. So crack seal is being moved here. So when we get our final budgets, you'll see it in this
Correct.
MFT. Any questions on page 5?
Mary?
Yes.
I know salary is up compared to 245, 334, so it's up about 90,000. I know we're reallocating more to the MFT currently, but the Social Security and Medicare are actually down from, based on the 245, they were 15,000 and 3,000. We're actually reducing those, and those don't equate to your typical Medicare and Social Security tax percentages. I didn't know where those numbers came from. I would imagine if salaries are up, those numbers would be up as well, and yet those are down fairly dramatically.
I'd have to double check that with Julie,
Yeah.
unless you know, Brian.
She calculates those, and I believe the auditors take the salaries, benefits, and kind of lump those together, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, or they did at one point. So if we're increasing the salaries, I would have to check. We might increase the salaries in this budget, but not reduce the Social Security and things in the regular streets budget.
But we did reduce, what I'm saying is we've raised the salaries here and reduced the
Right,
taxes.
but I have to
Okay.
check the streets
Oh,
budget. I think
okay.
that might have,
Maybe have taken the
that
increase
might
over there.
accounts for the rest of the Social Security, and we just took the salaries here, but I'll double check that,
Okay.
Julie.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One more.
Mike.
Operating costs, road material, 35,000 this year versus 17,500 last year. It's doubled.
Costs, stone costs, and also we had increased some quantities in there as well. So that's really the gist of it. There's an increase in the CA6 and the CA7, or the aggregates
Yeah.
that we use. And
So those are basically almost doubling in price.
yeah, I think last year was,
Last year was
Last year,
17,500.
17.5. Or the actual, well,
the actual or the,
well, the
That was the budget last year.
budget for 22 was 17.5, but now you have down fiscal year 22 estimated actual as 34.
I may have put more stone in there. The goal of it was to utilize MFT funds. While the cost did go up, I think the intent was to use more of the funds that are available for that.
The current year actual is only $1,530
Okay.
through
There
January.
has to be, and I spoke to Julie about that, we have to take some stone that was utilized in the streets and basically adjust to reflect MFT, that balance there. Here's what it's still here.
Yes. And municipal, okay, okay, so that must be where it's at, thanks. Mhm. So we're,
Material. 2,000 tons, 1750, averaging 1750 per ton. And I have to double check last year's, because that's 35,000. I know that we took out the hot bituminous, cold bituminous this year as well, which that got put into the actual streets, counts.
That was gone last year too.
No, it was in there last year, except we pulled it out because we couldn't use the funds for it. It might have been under, the description itself, let's see, yeah, I'd have to check the other form for that. Last year's, Mike, and here, see what I had allocated. Yeah, that one of the details sheet, I'm sorry.
so you're saying for road material, year-to-date, we're at
1,300.
13 something?
1,500, sorry.
One of the problems or concerns is when we code these bills, you guys look at what the stone was used for. Majority of the work is either the water department or the street department. Whatever the water department utilizes cannot be used for motor fuel tax.
Okay,
Whatever the street department uses may be used, or will be used, should be used for MFT. But it's put into road supplies, so it's a little bit, when the guys are doing the bills, they don't think of the MFT right away. So typically what we end up doing is an adjustment, an accounting adjustment, taking all the streets, or total of approximately 35,000 to expend the motor fuel tax and adjust it from the streets. That's what we typically do. Now the question is, what did I have budgeted for last year under that same accounts? Or I should say, what were my numbers, and if you could bear with me. Yeah. Last year, I had 1,000 tons at 1750. So the pricing I utilized was the same, and it was the same because I averaged what the CA6 and the CA7 is, because the Illinois Department of Transportation doesn't want to see my stone breakdown with the different aggregates. So I take an average. It's 1750 per ton. Last year I had 1,000. And Mike, you're right. Last year we did not have the bituminous. I had numbers in there for it, but they were never inserted. Whereas they were in the 23 forecast and as well as in the 24 forecast. But obviously you don't see it anymore because they're gone, just because we could not use those funds based on the company we were using. Make sense?
Okay, but now you're saying you are going to be able to, because you're using a company that would allow you to do that?
No, with the asphalt, we're left it out right now. We still have, it's the same company we're using. The company that was the low bidder where we pick up the asphalt. This is for potholes. Okay, not to be confused with the annual road program. So these are materials that we utilize from a vendor. The vendor that we utilize, Illinois Department of Transportation has banned them from doing any type of business with the Illinois Department of Transportation. They're not in good standing with the
Okay.
Department of Transportation. We, as a consumer in this case, have no concerns because it's a product we pick up by the ton and we utilize it. This isn't $1 million contract, and again, so there's some long history to why and how they were banned and how long they are banned for this particular company.
Mike?
I'm okay on that. I mean, it's gonna wash one way or the other. It's one fund or the other fund. If you can get it to here, it's a matter of moving the accounting around. So I'm sure Dan will take care of that. But while we're on it, probably don't want to hear me talk anymore. But as we move down to the salt, I don't know if you want to move down on that page, but biomelt salt treatment, you've only got 9,450. Last year we had 33,000. This is that salt treatment, which I guess has been pretty effective, yet it's only a third of what it was last year.
Correct, and that's because again, Illinois Department of Transportation did not recognize that as a standard, if you want to say, for them. So if you look at the street division, we have that
Have it in
number
there?
covered in there, correct. And we pulled it out of there because the Illinois Department of Transportation, again, hasn't accepted that particular product as a standard. Will they in a year, 2 years? I don't know, but every time we hear of these things, I always try to lobby back down to Springfield and say, it doesn't make any sense. It's a good product, so on and so forth. But some of these products we're trying in our application for the first time. So, before we make that argument, we want to make sure that the product works. I think this year we have 2 products, Chris, is it? Or 3? 3, okay.
And that's the same as Thermopoint I'm seeing in the streets.
Not the same.
Well,
but-
not the same, but Thermopoint I'm seeing in the streets, and that's
Correct.
what that is, just a
Yes.
different product, okay.
And then
Thank you.
there's another product that we're gonna be using that hasn't been identified by name yet. It's a mix, actually, and I forgot what the concoction is.
We're getting 3,000 tons of salt again, right? Is that our?
That's our goal. We base it on the inventory that we have at the end of the year, but it seems just for bidding, I mean, we just got the bid prices back now. So we always just put in there 3,000 tons just because it's too hard to judge in the middle of the season. We're going back in January and telling them what the allocation should be.
Actually, I'm a little more confused now, because I found the Thermopoint in the streets, but last year had 32,000, this year has 32,000, and yet the biomelt, you're saying we have it in the streets, but yet the biomelt has decreased from that whatever it was, from 33,000 to 9,000. So we're still reducing that total expense by about 25,000.
Have a look at the streets. We're not
Mayor,
reducing.
maybe we can look at that.
I know,
It's
yeah, I
just
was gonna
gonna take
say,
some
I mean-
time going
Yeah.
through.
I know that we looked at, I know we had brought it back to municipal services, and we know there's 3 products, and the dollars should be accurate. We'll double check that through the agenda memo.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
I'm
no.
glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to take all the
Yeah.
time looking.
Yeah,
at it.
no, it's.
I agree, yeah.
But I think if we can go ahead and say we're flagging it for further review and
Sure.
get some answers, and maybe you can even, email us back like you did on some of the items from last week.
Sure.
Mary, I'm sorry, one question. Mike brought up the salaries and benefits and MFT, and I'm looking at the spreadsheet, Mike, and actually it pulled the wrong cell. It's under salaries of 334,000, but I looked at the spreadsheet, that includes the benefits also. So I have to break up. The salary's actually only about 276, and the rest will be benefits. I'll fix that.
Thank you.
It's a
Go ahead,
net
M drive,
zero.
see if you see it.
Okay. Okay, so you'll correct that?
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions on page 6 for the motor fuel tax budget? Any more questions on motor fuel tax? Okay. We will then move on to special service area number 1. Page 7. Any questions on special service area?
That's Terra Hill, and we haven't raised anything for them ever in the last 10 years. It's always been 5, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had that at 5. There was a year or two we might have abated that if not that many projects were identified. But between the burns and the studies there, we've been using it a bit more.
Cool.
Is the fact that they haven't done a burn and delayed a burn, I mean, in the last 2 years?
We're doing burns. The burns should be done on an annual basis. I believe there's three areas within Terra Hill. Every year, one of those it rotates. I believe it's one every 3 years. We have a contract in place. I believe it's a 5-year. That's a 5-year contract. It's been very well maintained.
Okay.
And at an optimal level and economical level, in my opinion.
Any questions on special service area number 1? Okay. So that completes the police department, water fund, water depreciation fund, MFT, and SSA funds. Okay. And we're going to go back to, because we've gone through all the budgets, now we're going to go back to some of the items that we said we would revisit last week. Does anyone need a break? Okay. So we will go back to, we already talked about the trucks and the water fund, but we're going to go back to the municipal services budget. Okay, and that would be
trees and the stoplight.
Yeah, we're going to talk about trucks first, and then we'll talk about trees and stoplights, and I think we also have updated information on the chamber sound system. So, but just looking for the trucks. That was under capital purchases, correct? Page 41?
Yes.
Okay. Dan sent out an email on February 24th after our last meeting. Any discussion on that? That was about HVAC though, and AED and tree trimming.
You're referencing, Mary.
Pardon?
Is it page 41?
Page 41, correct? Account number 30-4815.
You're talking about the trucks.
Right,
One was up to 305,000.
right.
The other one was what, 235, Jim?
Yes.
And we were gonna look at truck number,
Truck number 103, I think.
3.
Yeah, was the one that we.
Add that one?
So, yeah, Dan asked me to look at the rating on the truck, and so currently, as of November, when the mechanic last rated it, it has a 54.74 rating. While that may seem potentially far from the 75 number that's needed for replacement. What I did is I went back and looked at, and when I do my 3-year projection, this is I kind of do the same. I do the same thing as I look back at the vehicle type and vehicles that were similar to it and see how they progressed in their ratings as they got closer to replacement. So basically, when I looked at the other 7 large trucks that we have, and not all of them I had the information all the way back to when they were replaced, because we only started doing the ratings in like 2013 when the vehicle policy went into place. But what I basically kind of see is that it seems to average out that the trucks in the last 2 to 3 years before replacement, they start averaging about 5 to 7 points every year increase. And so what I would see here is basically at a 54.74 rating, you know, if it's at the high side on that, which unfortunately they have been seeming to be with the type of truck that's an international truck.
Can you pull the mic a little closer?
Yeah. So with the international trucks, it seems to be a little bit that they're kind of on the higher side compared to some of the older trucks that we had when it comes to the ratings closer to replacement. Being on the high side. So again, if this was right around that 7-point increase every year, we would hit the 75 in 3 years, you know, and so I can't see it being much further out than 3 years if it didn't hit that number. But again, I don't think it's very far off, you know, so I can't, you know, I think it's probably a good choice if the council is good with putting the money in to get it ordered, because you're probably not going to really see the truck for honestly 2 years, you know,
Chris,
if best guess.
If we add 103, would we, I mean, that's similar to 109, or excuse me, that's similar to 110. 110 is at 305.
Yeah.
So would we be adding 305?
Yeah, I think there's a chance that it would come in a little bit less than that, because 103 is a tailgate spreading truck, and 110 has the dual augers in the bed of the truck. So you're going to save a little bit on that. They both have chipper caps because they're both used for chipping. So that's going to be the same. So I think you'd save probably a little bit on it, but I think safe. If I was going to say to feel safe based on everything I know, I would put the $300,000 in there.
305.
Yeah, and feel safe, and our goal is to come in as low as possible every single time, you know, and save as much as we can.
Let me ask a question about maintenance. It just occurred to me that, you know, we're ordering these new trucks,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's going to be a delay, or it could be a long delay
Yeah.
in getting these. Does that mean that we're going to be seeing additional maintenance on the current trucks that we have?
Yes.
And is that going to increase our costs in terms of parts, material, and labor?
Yeah, it's very possible, you know. So one of the things, you know, even with truck 110 is currently it doesn't, as of when it got rated in November, it did not have the 75 rating. We're asking to get that ordered early because we're seeing it. And just as I kind of told Dan today, is after last Thursday night and Friday morning snowstorm, we had to send the truck back down to Rush Truck Center because it won't do a parked regen. So the emissions on it, it basically has to go in there and burn off enough in order to get the system clean, and it can't do it. And basically last time we had this happen, we've had it happen on a few different trucks, and the repair cost basically runs somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000, depending on what's wrong. So that's unfortunate. That's the unfortunate part. Is the answer is probably, but I can't guarantee anything. I mean, we've had it with truck, 110 again earlier this year. We threw a transmission at it. We had to replace the whole transmission. So you never know what goes.
So we're looking at then adding in 103 at about $305,000 with the hope of, getting it ordered, but the unlikeliness of it coming in this year.
No, yeah, well,
Is there a consensus on the council to do that?
Yes.
Lester? Eric? Yeah, okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. Yes, Brian?
I'm sorry, one addition, Mayor Marquez mentioned the maintenance.
Yes.
And I'm just looking back, this current year, we budgeted 55, we're running high about 99. But this budget 55, did increase it to 75 for fiscal year '23, which is more in line with fiscal year ending '21. So we added a little bit to the budget.
So that's 30-4225, maintenance vehicle, 4229, maintenance vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't change the number since you have it. It just, I wanted to.
Right, but it is
Yeah,
higher than
than the last year's budget.
last year's
But it
budget.
is less than.
But it's less than what we're actually coming in at.
This year, correct.
Okay. And do you want to keep it at 75?
I'll talk to Chris and Dan tomorrow if, just to make sure they're comfortable with that number, given
Okay.
what we're talking about now and
Okay.
prolonging vehicles.
Okay, if you could put that on the list. Okay? Any more questions on vehicles? Okay? Then, let's wait to do the street light until we've done the other stuff. I know in a follow-up, we got a confirmed number on the HVAC system, which we modified last week. And we also modified the police department retaining wall. We've talked about the trucks. We've talked about the AED. Let's do tree trimming. That is in capital projects, right?
Streets.
Streets, why am I not seeing that?
4375.
Where the trucks were.
Okay,
Page 41.
jump the gun. Yep, I got it circled. So $157,000.
In a nutshell, right now, we're paying $64, $54 per tree for tree trimming. I did reach out to Homer after our initial conversation that they would not be moving forward with an extension. They came back with an offer. We countered the offer. So right now, they're looking at, they've settled at $80 per tree. With that said, one of the things we're going to do is we've canvassed several other municipalities that outsource the same service that we have, and we're going to put an average together. I just, received something back from Homer Tree this morning or late afternoon, so I did not have the opportunity to really get into it and determine what the median is. But we're going to use that figure right now. I think we used $85, so it's a good figure that we've increased in the budget for.
You said 80 then?
80, correct, is what they've come back with.
1750.
1750, correct, is the
Talking
total
about-
number of trees, right?
140,000 versus the 94,000.
Correct.
So you're looking at the tree trimming budget going up a total of about $83,000.
Correct.
Wow, okay.
So yesterday you said they had offered 85 and you were gonna go back and offer them 75. You guys.
I did,
split
yeah,
the difference.
basically correct. I offered them 75, they came back with 80, that was the bottom line.
Okay, so you're still negotiating with them.
Well, we're done negotiating. I think now it's a matter of taking what we've received from other municipalities on recent bid tabulations to determine whether or not it is still a good price. So we'll be forthcoming with a decision. But we have monies, I feel, that are allocated for it in a fair amount.
Okay. Any more questions on tree trimming?
Cut mine down.
Dan, anything else on that?
No,
Okay.
listen, I think Eric wants his tree cut down, is what
Yeah, I
he
do.
was saying.
That'll save you $80.
But it'll be an increase in cost and removal.
A lot more than 80.
I'll cut it. I got rid of the one book by a lightning bolt, so I'm praying for lightning for another one.
Okay, so I think that was
okay,
everything
Mr.
we wanted to
Edison.
revisit in municipal services, streets engineering, correct? But then, now we're gonna move on to capital projects. We also, though, in the, agenda for today, there were attachments and did you want to talk about we didn't go back to administration, the equipment for the sound system, do we want to do that?
We included that, I think Alderman Belzak asked about that because the first meeting, we did not have
The detail.
The detail
So-
and backup, so it's just really for information.
Okay, but I just want to ask to see, okay, so that's in the administrative budget. So if you guys want to pull that back out in case there's a question regarding the equipment. And Lester, you raised your hand.
On the additional documents, so on page 2, there's a typo for the computer and software. That's 8,00. Looks like just $8, but it should be $8,000. $8 is good, but you know,
8,000, right.
It's on page 1 though, correctly.
is it page 1?
Okay.
Page 2.
One is
Oh,
8,000.
okay.
Is there any more discussion on Fund 10-4815 administrative, the equipment? This was back up to conversation for last week. Okay,
Sorry, I'm late. I apologize.
It's
What-
okay.
The $5,000 contingency, what is that for?
I don't know where you're at, Joe, I'm sorry.
he's on the
Computer.
administrative page 2 of the, for the equipment, for the
either-
chambers and wireless mics. He's wondering what the $5,000 contingency's for.
I don't recall, I don't have that page with me now, but we typically do put a contingency in, into that room, almost like we do for computers. You know, we have a little bit set aside in the event that something else goes wrong with, I mean, we have a number of, separate pieces of equipment.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, then we'll go back to the capital projects budget and talk about the traffic light. We received supplemental information from Dan regarding this, and I know it was discussed at Municipal Services last night, correct?
That is correct.
Someone want to give me a synopsis of that?
Uh,
Or share that
Tom, it's
synopsis?
up to you if you want me to. do
Sure.
it, you wanna do it.
Well, it was on there for 3 things. One was to incur some costs in getting some work done with
The engineering, there,
the engineering, and there was 2 things. What was the other one?
the engineering and the
9,000,
traffic
20,000.
and the actual implementation of the design. So there was 2 parts to it, the surveying and the bid preparation and engineering through CLOA. So those were for the total of $30,000.
29 something,
Yeah,
yeah.
29,500. That was part of the 450,000 of that 450,000. 400 is allocated again for the street traffic signal, and 50,000 was for engineering and or utilities. Utility relocates, everything else has been accounted for. So the committee had discussed it, and I know we also had discussed the 3 questions that were brought up at the previous budget meeting. The one question that is not answered was, does CLOA believe a traffic signal should be installed there? They won't answer that, that's an opinion, and it's more a biased opinion where they present the facts with the engineering report, whether it meets or does not meet the warrants. It currently does not meet the warrants again. And the main question was, could have accidents been prevented with a traffic signal in place? The answer is yes. In conjunction with that, the other question that's a follow-up was whether or not there would be cut-through traffic through the local neighborhood roadways. That answer is primarily no, and I say that because there may be some limited cut-through, very limited. Again, it's more of a wait-and-see approach, but as we look at it, it really doesn't make sense for anybody to be cutting through. I think Alderman Kenny had presented a point of how he cuts through if you wanted to go through that scenario again, so.
He's still working on it.
But, anyway, long story short is the committee had reached a conclusion of a 2-0 vote with 1 abstention. And Alderman Gustafson was the abstention, and again, I think his main concern was on the abstention was if Willowbrook doesn't approve it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, if Willowbrook doesn't approve it, does that put us into any type of buying? The answer is no. The city council, municipal services will have the opportunity to review this item at a minimal of 2 more times. Once will be the preliminary and final for the contract itself. So regardless, I plan on putting this on the city council agenda for March, for this Monday. The Village of Willowbrook, the IGA and the 2 engineering agreements. The Village of Willowbrook is going to be entertaining the subject at their village meeting on March 14th. So again, if Willowbrook says no, it's still up to the city council of Darien to say yes or no. We'll have plenty of opportunity. We can always take a wait and see approach. If this item is inclusive of the budget, then when we get the final pricing through the bid tabulations, if we get that far, we'll have another opportunity to say, no, we're not going to do it, or we could shelve it for whatever reason, whether the costs are too high or the atmosphere has changed for whatever reason. And again, Willowbrook is committed to 25% or a maximum of $200,000 for the project. I think that's really in a nutshell. I'm not sure if any of the committee members from last night will want to add anything else to that.
Mayor Marquez?
I had a phone conversation with Mayor Trilla on Thursday. He called me because several of our aldermen contacted him with regard to this project. And he told me unequivocally that Willowbrook fully supports this project, that he himself travels through that intersection several times a day, that his daughter and his family does, and he says, and that is an intersection that has quite a few issues that he felt that a stoplight would address, and he was happy that we were bringing it up this time, but he told me, he said, he was assuring me that as mayor of Willowbrook, he was going to make sure that that proposal went through with his council.
Thank you, Mayor Marquez. Brian,
My
Vanna.
only point was last night too, was, I mean, if that's being true, take the 25% off and let them go in at the 200 and forget the 25% rule and let them go in at 200,000.
Well, the agreement, it really has been negotiated, and those terms are what
Not final.
is coming to the committee and coming to Willowbrook.
But it's not final, can be adjusted. I just think
Well,
they
then
should
you
be
should
in
ta-
at- I
ask the
think they
council.
should be in at 200, otherwise we're taking the burden.
We control 3/4 of that intersection. They only.
They've got probably a lot more traffic coming from
Sorry.
their direction.
Mr. Mayor, I know that there was confusion in the past. We control all 4. Our control is basically 4, so if anything, it's our total responsibility. We control the intersection, we maintain it, and we police it. So it's all Darien, actually.
Yeah,
But the northeast corner is Willowbrook, right?
From a traffic standpoint.
Not from a traffic, I'm talking about geographically.
Residents,
Right,
the address on the
geographically.
northeast corner is
Right,
Willowbrook.
and it's one thing we're gonna take a look at is when the survey comes back in, that we're gonna clean up any type of boundary agreements, which is at no cost. I just wanna make sure that,
But it's a Darien intersection is what you're saying.
Correct.
But I would
Correct.
love to know where the drivers are coming from, what community do they live in that are going through the intersection.
I think
Would
that would be a
love to know
tough
that.
thing to figure out.
Love to know that number.
You
because
could have
probably
people-
I think
predominant-
the accident reports that you got showed a lot of it, and it's most of them aren't from Darien or Willowbrook. I mean, there are some,
Yeah.
but there was all over the place that were driving through that intersection and the accidents.
And
And
one
I
of
think
the
the
things-
17 reports that the chief provided us.
And one of the things that we had briefly discussed yesterday is why that intersection is so plagued. And I think the analogy, I know the analogy that I had utilized was that Clarion Hills Road is, everyone knows Clarion Hills is a thoroughfare, if you want to say. Whereas 67th Street, if you're traveling down Clarion Hills Road, you don't anticipate 67th Street being a thoroughfare in comparison to the rest of Clarion Hills Road. For example, Maple, you would think that 67th Street will be compared to a Maple Avenue or a 71st Street or a 69th Street. That's not the case because it's the only real through street from Route 83 to Cass Avenue. So everything else is in between. So I think that's part of it is residents, non-residents don't expect that jump out from 67th Street is the only thing that I can analyze. I've been, and again, I've been dealing with this intersection through my career, if you want to say. So again, I'm just, presenting some of the insights that I've seen and or discussed with the traffic engineers.
Brian Vanna.
Dan brought up all the scenarios. He brought up the contribution from Willowbrook and the agreement. Eric mentioned something different. I would hate to go to Willowbrook the night that they approve it, and then we ask for changes. So I think this is an important issue to make sure the rest of the council, even though they'll see the agreement next week, are in a conceptual agreement with that and the amount of money that Willowbrook's giving us, because they don't have to give us anything. We went to them. It's our project.
Right.
So I just am curious because I don't want to
So
slight
we're going to
Willowbrook
first
and
talk,
change.
we're going to first do a consensus on, is the council comfortable with proceeding with the current agreement as it stands, 25% up to $200,000? Yes, 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 yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Alderman Gustafson?
Abstain.
Abstain. So we have a majority here saying yes, forge ahead with the current agreement. Okay. So then, is there any more discussion on the traffic light?
The only other point is then, I did not add the revenue yet in from Willowbrook, so I
Right.
will adjust that now that we have their commitment. So that'll be a swing of, I'll just probably put $100,000 in there, and Dan and I will talk maybe a little more, but, so that's not reflective yet, and it will be.
And then I guess just going back around, there's obviously a consensus for us to move forward with keeping this in the budget. I know we agreed on the agreement, but everyone's in, not everyone, but is there a majority in favor of proceeding with this as a budgeted item?
Yes, I mean, last week I had concerns. A lot of them were satisfied by what we got from CLOA and what we got from is the type of accidents. I always said that safety was my biggest concern here, and when I found out 53 of the 59 were angle accidents, which could normally be stopped by a traffic light, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So now I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. And that helped, I think, the rest of, at least for me personally, it reassured me too, that that was the information we needed to kind of seal the deal.
Now,
Anyone else?
Are these other studies then being done, or what's the,
We're done with studies,
done, so none of the, okay.
correct?
We don't have to worry about anything else coming, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
The three items that you're talking about for the intersection of 67th and Clarendon Hills Road, they were put under the consent agenda. Should they be removed to new business so that there can be discussion? I don't know.
I would put them
Well-
under new business at this point.
Well, I didn't look at
Okay.
I know Maria just put out today, and I didn't get a chance to review it yet, so.
Is this for the city council meeting on Monday?
Right, because, well, we got the draft agenda, and I did make a comment to her, depending on what the vote was at the meeting for municipal services, but with the discussion here, perhaps there should also be discussion on Monday evening regarding the three items for the
I guess from a
intersection.
protocol standpoint, if we look at abstention goes with consent, so.
But under consent, it's usually a majority, and he could ask at that meeting
Right.
for, to be removed and put under new business.
No, I mean,
And
that's
we would go
understood,
that
yeah.
route. We'll keep it on a consent, and if anybody wants to ask it to come off, it could come off. Because it did go to committee and got approved, and that's what we typically try to do, things that are
Right,
approved at
that's-
committee.
that's-
That would
what I
happen in
said
the
to Maria.
pre-council, right?
We'd have the same conversation at city council next week as we're having today and what we had at the last budget meeting and what we had last night. I mean, so I don't know.
We're repeating ourselves
Yeah,
to
what more are
repeat
you gonna?
ourselves.
What more are you gonna talk about?
Well, last night, your vote was 3-0 then?
No,
It was
2-0.
3-0 on two of the matters and 2-0 and an abstention on one of them.
Oh, there were only two of you there.
No,
Oh.
no, Mr.
three.
Gust- Alderman Gustafson abstained on one of the votes.
On one of them.
Abstention goes with the majority.
So we'll leave it on consent.
I vote
Okay.
no next time.
I just want to make sure that, all right.
On consent.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on that? No? Any more items that people want to bring up regarding the budget? Okay, as noted in the communication that went out today about tonight's meeting, there will be a discussion at the March 21st City Council meeting relating to a public works building. And information will be available prior to that. Anything else for tonight? Yes.
I'm sorry, maybe we can clarify before we continue with the discussion for the Public Works. What is the goal? If I may ask, again, I think we all been through the needs. So basically, just to recap, I want to get the flavor of what everyone is looking for. Is it potential, for the agenda, this is, potential land acquisition, potential total cost of which phase to go with, what the cost could possibly be to the city, whether it's through revenue sources and or bonds. So I don't know if there's any more clarification or direction that the council would like to give us.
No, I had understood that Dan would bring back the costs for the rehab of the building. I think, Dan, you have a more recent cost. I don't know if it's much different, where you go kind of the whole lot.
Yeah, slightly, but
Slightly,
yeah.
so we would come back with that, and we would come back with a revenue discussion. And should the discussion evolve into, well, should we build a new building? I mean, that's pretty simple. That's then a dollar amount we could just put in, because we'd have to acquire land and we have to build the building. I mean, that's how I anticipate.
That's correct. I just
That's
want to
right.
make sure that's still the
yeah.
flavor, or there's not, if there's any other caveats that you'd like us to explore, or, try to solidify this and come to a decision on whether we'd shelve it or whatever the case is.
I think what you've offered, Dan, is what people need to know.
I think that's the expectation, at least for me personally. I'm not going to speak for everybody, that I have. And I know when we had this conversation prior, 2 years ago plus, there was land acquisition possibilities that no longer exist. So is there anything out there that's even possible, feasible? But yeah, I mean, just I guess an update on the situation from a couple years ago. And I also bring to light any critical issues in the current facilities that need to be addressed that you find dire.
Yeah, we're going to include all that for
Yeah.
next year's budget. It's
I
just-
figured, yeah, so.
Yeah, okay.
You're gonna give everybody a design for remodel, cost for remodel. If you're gonna talk about the conditions, what that would accomplish.
My goal would be to present one of the three options for the remodel, which is basically, I won't say knocking down the building, but basically maybe saving the office and redoing the rest of it. So that's really the only optimal, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the optimal option that we saw. The second option is identifying some parcels that have the potential to include future growth. Now, there's two potentials, either voluntary sales and or condemnation. So that's the second part of it. What it all boils down to is a cost for maintaining where we're at with no future growth, or option B, with the land acquisition, with the potential for future growth for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So that's really the gist of it in a nutshell, and along with the costs and the potential revenues.
And will you provide these scenarios to us prior to the meeting so we have a chance to review
Oh,
them?
definitely,
Okay.
definitely, yeah. I just don't want to go back and repeat, what scenarios of the three remodels are the best. I think that's all been concluded, so I want to bring forth the information that is the best information and the optimal operations.
That will be in the packet for the meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about that for Dan or expectations you want to share?
And if anybody wants to go and take a tour, I know I've offered it several times. Many of the elected officials have been through there already, so I don't want to be a broken record. And again, if there's residents' concerns, anytime. They don't need me there. Chris, our two foremen are there. It's an open house. It's the city of Darien's, prize.
I'd be glad to show up, Dan, if you need more people to show around.
Yeah, that's a problem right there.
Okay. Any more things
just
that need to be discussed on the
a quick
budget
question
packet
regarding
and
that.
the budget workshop?
I remember the least expensive thing was just replacing the roof. Is that correct?
The
That's
roof,
my memory. Of
that's
2
really,
years ago?
yeah, that's in a nutshell, the roof and maybe the windows, again.
And has there been any deterioration in the roof, or has anything changed since 2 years ago regarding the roof and the windows?
We have a bigger tarp now under the roof where it catches the water, so that has been improved, and that was done at,
Did Brian help you get that?
the windows, I think they put plastic on them now and a little more shades. Nah, they said forget it, so.
Yeah, I'm
Bigger buckets to catch the water too, I think, yeah.
okay. I think you answered
We've
that.
upgraded it.
And they go to church and pray regularly every Sunday that it doesn't rain.
Snow.
Is there anything anyone else has to add for the meeting, for the budget?
I know Woodridge needs to, they're talking about getting their public works at some point in the future.
Oh, they're doing it.
Police and municipal services, both, right on James Avenue.
30 million.
Significant dollars.
It's for police. They're doing it.
Yeah, it's a whole it's in a whole facility though, police and municipal services. Yeah, kind of like what Countryside
Two
did.
departments, Brian, 15 million apiece.
Why that?
Actually, it was 3.5 million for land acquisition. They took out a $5 million bond, they spent $3.5 million on land acquisition. So the other $26.5 billion is the facility.
If there's nothing further,
I have one
yes.
more thing to say, Mayor, and it's kind of related to the budget, but, you know, sometimes I will read some of the social media next door and some of that, and Dan and I have a working relationship where we banter, we argue, and I would never have it any other way. So somebody, one person who uses a fake name, I believe, made some comment about me not liking Dan. And it's so ridiculous. And I think these meetings are a good place for us to have debate and not necessarily agree. So
You guys
I would-
haven't liked each other.
So you
I
do
would
like
love-
20
me?
years. Come on. who
I
you
would
kidding?
love nothing more than to continue to work with Dan for a long time. And just in case the council saw that and had any inclination that that false comment had any credibility, it has zero credibility.
So you do like me?
I love Dan Millenbeck.
He wants to take you on a date.
No,
That's why they
I
put me in the
have to-
middle here.
I have to echo off of Brian's comments, no questions asked, you know.
Got a good restaurant.
I read that, and really, for anybody to say that is really despicable. Again, we debate, we'll banter. At the end of the day, a conclusion, we respect each other's decisions, and Alderman Marquez, since he's here every day, I think is very pervy to that, where he turns around and walks away from us because he's not sure if we're going to start swinging sometime, but
I think you're like brothers, if anything. That's how I see it.
See, guys, just to piggyback, I made a joke about you guys not liking each other. I've seen you guys work together for 12 years, and that's how you guys are day in and day out. And if you guys didn't have arguments or didn't have discussions, this place wouldn't be running top
I
notch.
was gonna say, you know, I'm here every day, and I see what goes on, and I'll tell you, we are one of the most effective city staffs in terms of getting things done, and it's because of the interaction between everyone here. These two will banter, and it's comic relief for me, because I see that, and, you know, he's Putin one day, and he's somebody else.
I'm not Putin ever. Bad example.
Yeah. But no, it's, you know what, it's personalities, but at the end of the day, I think everyone in this room and anyone who's in City Hall frequently will attest to the professionalism and the working relationships, the camaraderie, and the fact that the city of Darien is a well-oiled machine when it comes to operations, both at City Hall, at the police department, and at municipal services. So
I say this not to the person who wrote it, it's just in case people read that, because some people read stuff like that and want to give it credibility. So it's not to the writer, it's to everybody else who might read that and just wonder.
Well, I
Well,
think it
since-
was a good point.
Well, since we're on fake names, and I'm going to use this as a soapbox to stand on, I do love Darien. I did not move my business out of Darien to go to Downers Grove because I don't like Darien, okay? So the company that I'm working with now had some great training and some great opportunities for me, and I went to it. Like anybody else reading any of these social media pages would take an improvement of their careers to do that, and that's what I did. I did not go to move my business to Downers Grove because I don't like Darien. So I'm just going to put that out there and be done with it.
We're going to talk about that. It was mentioned that Brian and Dan liked each other more when Kathy was here versus me. And that I micromanaged Dan and Brian. So when I was out for 2 weeks because I had COVID, I came back and I asked them what the hell they got done in 2 weeks since I wasn't here to micromanage.
Oh, my gosh.
The whole place shut down,
And the way to
Mayor
see
Joe.
it is there's a tertiary now. It's Joe, Brian, and Mary who run the city, and and Kenny is on the outskirts because he moved to Downers Grove. I mean, there's all.
Well, you
kinds
can't
of-
give, trust me, being in the communication business, you can't give any validity to, that. You can't.
It's almost hilarious to read it.
Yeah, I know. So
Oh,
all I
and
know
I
is
will-
we know the truth. We know what's real.
And I will try speaking more clearly and concise. Apparently, I'm not doing that, so I'm going to work at that. Okay.
Well, I do believe having masks off and having a new system in place will help all of us project and be heard clearly. So let's reel it all in, everybody. Okay. I'm reeling it in.
These go
Very,
away.
very nice job. leading
Eric's
the-
the fisherman. So Eric, we're gonna reel it in, right?
I think he had a question. I'm sorry.
When do these go away? I'm really tired of those things.
The mics?
The partitions. He's asking about
Oh.
the plexiglass.
No
Tomorrow
problem
morning.
with them.
Okay.
Yeah, we can pull those down now, right?
I read that fishing boat is your happy place.
It is.
Why do we have to
Very
take
much
these
so.
away?
And by the way,
We'll talk about that
happy
offline.
birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Is it your birthday today, Eric?
And
It
Joe
was last
Kenny.
Saturday.
Well, happy Wayback Burgers opened up.
It's Sunday. Facebook's a little early.
Is there any further discussion?
I think we're done.
We have officially finished reviewing the fiscal year 23 budget. Let's give us all a round of applause.
Great job.
Thank you. And we will be getting some updates to numbers. Updated documents will be available. But Brian, the date for it to be on city council will still remain April 6th, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the city council will have a public hearing on April 6th to review and approve the budget. With that being said, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, and have some snacks.